The western United States sits on the edge of the Pacific Ring of Fire, where stability can vanish in an instant. Across this vast region, 21 long quiet volcanoes are stirring at the same time.
And now for a look at stories making headlines around the world, and we start with a spate of natural disasters. A volatile ring of fire, a line of seismic faults in the Pacific Ocean has sparked earthquakes and volcanic eruptions on opposite ends of the ocean.
Across this vast frontier of glaciers, forests, deserts, and crowded cities, 21 volcanoes form a hidden spine of danger. Many thought quiet, some written off as relics, all now showing signs of life at the same time. On October 21st, 2025, satellites and seismic networks picked up something scientists almost never see. Synchronized unrest stretching thousands of miles, ground lifting in Alaska, gas plumes in British Columbia, quake swarms in the Cascades, magma signals beneath Oregon and California. Not one volcano, not two, 21 giants shifting in the same narrow window of time. Is this just a coincidence of restless mountains, or the first chapter of a chain reaction that could rewrite the map of the American West? Chapter 1. Alaska Volcano Triple Threat. Augustine, Redoubt, Spur. Whisper these names in Alaska, and you summon stories of fire and ice. But in October 2025, they did something new. They stirred together. Augustine sits alone, rising from the waters of Cook Inlet, an island crowned with cliffs and white snow. In 2006, it grounded planes as far as Anchorage and Homer under a cloud of ash. Now, in 2025, tremors beneath its flanks have returned, low, persistent, as if the Earth is breathing harder. Satellite images reveal hotspots and new plumes of sulfur-laced air. The stench carries across coastal villages, drifting on steady winds. On Augustine's slopes, fumaroles have become more active, venting with striking regularity. Scientists at the Alaska Volcano Observatory, an effort uniting the Geophysical Institute, US Geological Survey, and Alaska state geologists, have raised their alert from normal to elevated. Drones sweep the mountain, searching for cracks and new vents that signal mounting pressure beneath the snow. The question is no longer if Augustine will show warning signs, but how much time those signs might give us. Nearby, Mount Redoubt stands sentinel under brooding clouds. Redoubt's 2009 eruption sent ash plumes high enough to disrupt trans-Pacific flights and dust Anchorage, city of nearly 300,000, in grey. Now, Redoubt is changing once again. Seismic imaging shows new paths, suggesting another magma conduit may be at work, possibly tapping into a deeper source. This isn't just recharging, it's a volcano evolving. Scientists caution that while Redoubt tends to give some warning, its signals are not always easy to interpret. Will its next eruption be slow in building or strike with little notice? And then there's Mount Spur, west of Anchorage, a sleeping giant since its last eruption in 1992. But since late 2023, Spur's ice cap has shown hints of internal heat. Satellites captured thermal surges beneath its summit crater. Cracks have widened, steam rises in new places, and sulfur dioxide levels have spiked again. Spur's magma chamber, dormant for decades, now appears to be refilling. The city of Anchorage, directly downwind, could experience ashfall severe enough to threaten aviation and health. The last eruption unfolded over weeks, not months. Will 2025 see a replay, or has the risk profile grown even more unpredictable? In Alaska, the ground shakes, but so does the determination of those charged to watch it. Multiple volcanoes, synchronizing their unrest in the same year, is rare. The attention of the world turns north. But do we fully understand what we're seeing? Chapter 2. Canada, Ice-Covered Volcanoes. As you leave Alaska's islands behind, the mountains only grow wilder. British Columbia is a land so rugged that its heights are sometimes unnamed. The volcanoes here are stirring from what many mistook for eternal sleep. Mount Meager is no stranger to disaster. About 2,400 years ago, it exploded in the largest eruption Canada has seen in over 10,000 years. A catastrophe measured in cubic kilometers of ash and debris. In 2023, tremors began anew beneath the mountain's icy dome. Residents north of Vancouver smelled sulfur in the air and watched as glacial meltwater increased and landslides tumbled down fractured slopes. Instruments confirmed the movement. Earthquakes, ground shifts, increased gas emissions. Today, Meager's slopes are unstable, split by deep fissures. Scientists warn it may not be lava, but landslide disaster that comes next. Avalanches so swift they could change the valley in minutes. Further south, Mount Garibaldi rises above Squamish and Whistler. Dormant for thousands of years, Garibaldi began to show subtle warmth in 2024. Drones detected geothermal hotspots, patches of ground inexplicably warm amid lingering snow. Glacial balance is changing, with more melt and shifting crevasses. Scientists debate Garibaldi's timeline, but agree, even seemingly minor activity can pose risks to communities below, both from sudden landslides and outburst floods. The volcanoes of British Columbia, often dismissed as relics, send warnings through tremors and sulfur-laced air. The risk is different here, but no less real. Will we pay attention, or will these ancient peaks catch us unprepared yet again? Chapter 3. Cascades. Giants Awakening. South into Washington, a string of volcanoes marks the Cascades, a corridor where the Earth's power is rarely absent for long. With the 2025 alert, the region's uncertainty is sharper than ever. Mount Baker stands near the border, its peak wrapped in glacier and cloud. In 2024, Sherman Crater produced small, persistent gas emissions, sulfur and carbon dioxide, typical signs of shallow magma. Earthquakes, faint but regular, have become a pulse in the data. For Baker, the threat is not only eruption, but the possibility that heat could trigger rapid melting of overlying ice, causing lahars, deadly volcanic mudflows that can sweep through valleys and communities without warning. Further inland, Glacier Peak remains obscure to many, remote, hidden by rugged terrain. But infrared radar and seismic sensors have detected warmth under its thick ice and occasional swarms of tiny quakes. Few monitoring stations and harsh weather mean early signs here may go undetected. If Glacier Peak erupts, there would be little time for towns and villages nearby to respond. To the south, Mount Rainier dominates, its glacier-loaded summit looming over Seattle. Since late 2024, subtle increases in heat have been registered beneath the peak. Though not currently erupting, Rainier's massive glaciers are vulnerable to rapid melting. A minor vent beneath them could trigger lahars big enough to overwhelm river valleys, impacting tens of thousands throughout the Puyallup River Basin. Here, as always, the most urgent question is response time. Could warnings reach everyone before disaster strikes? Mount St. Helens, ever a reminder of volcanic power, has continued its slow refilling for decades since 1980. Radar in 2024 revealed ongoing uplift of its crater floor, a sign magma is accumulating, breathing deep once again. Despite frequent monitoring and improved sensors since the last explosive eruption, uncertainty remains about when and how strongly the next event will unfold. Mount Adams, meanwhile, has shown signs of increased subsurface warmth on its southern slopes, a shift noticed by volcanologists even if the public pays little heed. Is Adams being invited to join a broader reawakening of the Cascades? The Cascades represent more than a scenic range. They are a ribbon of latent energy stretched across the Pacific Northwest, and now many of their summit signals have begun to shift together. Chapter 4. Oregon Volcanic Warnings. Traveling south into Oregon reveals a landscape defined by fire and ice. Here, mountains that seemed at rest are showing new hints of activity. Mount Hood, familiar to millions in Portland and beyond, rises above the forests in sharp, snowy relief. By late 2023, Scientists identified a rising trend in volcanic gas emissions, mainly carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide, drifting from the summit area. The magma reservoir deep below is believed to be rebuilding pressure, and periodic swarms of small earthquakes have been recorded. Hood's last eruption was in the 1860s, but volcanic mudflows, the lahars, remain a concern, as melting glaciers could turn to torrents without much warning. Each year, new studies strengthen the potentially active classification. Further south, Mount Jefferson remains rugged and forbidding, less visited and less studied. Despite little historic eruptive activity in the past centuries, sensors now pick up increased gas fluxes, including hydrogen sulfide rising from deep cracks and fumaroles. There is no comprehensive warning system in place. Jefferson is both underestimated and, perhaps, among the most vulnerable in Oregon, as population growth encroaches into higher valleys. Then there are the three sisters, north, middle, and south. The most dramatic activity centers on South Sister, where, over 2 decades, ground uplift has inflated the land more than 10 inches, a clear marker of magma collecting below. In 2024, over 200 earthquakes rattled the area in just 6 weeks, correlating with increased ground swelling only a few miles from a major highway. Bend, Oregon, a rapidly growing city, sits within striking distance. Is this the start of a new cycle, or just another restless interval? Further south lies Mount Mazama, once a towering volcano, now famous as Crater Lake. Though considered dormant with no recent eruptions, underwater mapping in 2023 indicated new domes swelling on the caldera floor. Even here, beneath the iconic Blue Lake, volcanic processes carry on their silent work. Finally, Mount McLaughlin, a relatively quiet presence, has shown subtle increases in temperature at its core. Overflights and occasional satellite checks reveal small, persistent hotspots, enough to warrant closer attention. In Oregon's patchwork of snowfields and forests, the warnings are numerous: rising gases, small quakes, and ground shifting underfoot. How many will be noticed before fire returns? Chapter 5: California Sleeping Volcanoes. Crossing from Oregon's green forests into the drier gold of California, the volcanoes seem subdued, but recent sensors suggest their silence can be deceiving. East of Mount Shasta, Medicine Lake Volcano sits as one of the largest shield volcanoes in the United States, its gentle slopes misleadingly calm. In 2023, seismic imaging identified a region of low-density stone beneath the volcano, likely the reservoir in which magma collects. It has not erupted in a millennium, but even the slow rise of molten rock here is watched, as California's dense population and delicate infrastructure face growing threats. Mount Shasta itself is visible for miles, a colossal cone last active in the 1700s. Recent geophysical surveys using advanced mapping have charted complex magma pathways. Experts agree Shasta remains one of the most likely US volcanoes to erupt over the next century, and with over 300,000 people in its broader region, the stakes are higher than ever. To the south, Lassen Peak holds a unique claim as the site of the last major Cascade eruption prior to Mount St. Helens. In 2023, monitoring devices picked up increases in gas emissions, most notably sulfur dioxide, often a signal that magma is moving upward. Mud pots boil, fumaroles hiss, and the land remains restive below the surface. While the mountain has stood quietly for decades, even minor changes could trigger unrest with little notice. The Long Valley Caldera near Mammoth Lakes is among the continent's largest volcanic depressions, a supervolcano created by a catastrophic ancient eruption. In 2024, satellite data tracked new ground swelling across parts of the caldera, a familiar but never comforting sign that magma is accumulating. Even moderate events here can shower ash across wide areas. The Coso volcanic field, deep in the desert, is better known for geothermal energy than for eruptions. Yet recent measurements of gas emissions and subtle uplift hint at changes below. While the energy output is commercially valuable, the geological processes driving it are reminders that subterranean heat can find unexpected paths upward. Lastly, the Salton Buttes near the Salton Sea represent the southernmost volcanic activity in California. These small domes, formed in the geologically recent past, showed a series of harmonic tremors, vibrations associated with magma movement in 2024. Carbon dioxide increases have also been noted. While far from large population centers, this area lies near major fault systems, a fact that draws concern from geologists wary of complex interactions. In California's chain of volcanoes, the warnings gather. Gases rising, air warming, ground shifting. Each a reminder that even long-slumbering volcanoes remain active members of the Pacific Ring of Fire. Chapter 6. Volcanic Chain Reaction. October 21st, 2025. Scientists gather remotely and in crisis centers spanning Anchorage to Sacramento. Data scrolls across screens, faces are tense. A level 5 volcanic alert, unprecedented, moves from academic theory to reality. Bulletins ripple across the globe. Eruptions possible, multiple volcanoes, weeks to months. This is what stands in the path. A chain of volcanoes reaching from Alaska's far islands to California's deserts. 21 volcanoes, some newly awakened, some sending signals after centuries of quiet. Seismic records thrum with the rhythm of countless quakes, from faint tremors to short-lived swarms. Ground sensors show land swelling, stretching after eons of stillness. Gases once trapped deep below, sulfur, carbon dioxide, even less oxygen in thin mountain air, speak to scientists in sharp, metallic clues. Magma does not respect human calendars. For decades, experts have admitted forecasting eruptions more than hours or days in advance was nearly impossible. But in 2025, a rare event. A single undersea volcano elsewhere on the Pacific Rim is likely to give notable warning months in advance, an encouraging sign for early detection. Yet the linked unrest on the mainland is a greater concern. Potentially not a series of isolated blasts, but a cascade of eruptions if conditions tip too far. Months of ash in skies, rivers clogged with mud flows, disrupted aviation, closed roads, and strained supply chains. These are the real consequences of widespread volcanic unrest. The lesson from history is clear. Eruptions come without appointments. There is only vigilance, watching, listening, measuring, hoping the instruments catch enough signs before the ground gives way. Even in the best prepared nations, some events will arrive quicker than warnings can spread. Level 5, the highest alert, not limited to one city, but a warning resonating through systems people depend on: flights, water, food, power. In moments like this, the tremor isn't just in the ground, but in every community that lives beneath these mountaintops. Chapter 7. Volcano Watchers on Edge. Amid columns of data and multi-agency disaster plans, other people, scientists and families sharing in vigilance and uncertainty. The Alaska Volcano Observatory, strengthened by the efforts of 3 agencies, increases its monitoring, launching drones and reviewing satellite paths for every flicker of heat or ground deformation. At the Cascade Volcano Observatory, the memory of previous seismic swarms, like the one in 2009, is sharp. Today's activity is measured against those data points, with every tremor mapped and every vapor sample analyzed. With more monitoring tools than ever, there are also more questions. Is a chain awakening? Can watching truly help? Or does it simply highlight how fast the ground can shift? Across Western North America, residents check emergency supplies and evacuation routes. Pilots plot extra detours, wary of plumes that can ground jetliners. Towns sitting within reach of valleys and rivers, especially in places like Bend, Oregon, must confront growth and prosperity built in the shadow of possible disaster. In California, city managers weigh emergency plans. Hospitals review protocols to deal with volcanic ash and patients with breathing issues. Airlines rehearse alternative landings. School officials keep in touch with scientists, knowing a single update could change everything in a day. Beneath it all, the realization that these warnings are deeply personal. The land is changing, the air is different, and the prospect of actual volcanic eruptions looms closer than many ever believed. Scientists continue to update bulletins, but the underlying message is somber. There's no guarantee of time. Not every event will announce itself with enough warning to allow for a perfect response. Chapter 8. Countdown to Eruptions. This is the countdown. 21 volcanoes, some famous, some overlooked, showing coordinated signals of change. Satellite data and ground sensors reveal shifts subtle and stark, from flecks of sulfur in the air to broad zones of uplift, from patterns of tremor to strange warmth streaming from cracks. Nature's memory is long, and sometimes the Earth's silence ends with a shudder that no one anticipates. Across borders, Alaska to California, British Columbia to Cascadia, the continent's western mountains are stirring. This is not an everyday story. In 2025, the geographical alert is global. The uncertainty is historic. The only question that matters now is, what happens when nearly 24 volcanoes signal unrest together? Do we pass this moment by, or is a new chapter being written in fire and ash? Which volcano would you watch? Where would you run? Are we witnessing the last whispers of ancient danger? Or is this the beginning of an era shaped again by the raw power of the Earth? We invite you to stay informed, because when the mountains begin to move together, the world must learn to listen closer than ever before. Tell us, what keeps you awake when even the ground beneath your feet whispers its own warning? Want to stay a step ahead as we follow the living Earth's latest stories? Subscribe and explore with us as we track each volcanic heartbeat. Sometimes it's not what you don't know that puts you at risk, but the dangers that can return after centuries of silence.